Okay, good morning, everybody. Hope everyone's okay. Apologies for slightly earlier start than usual. But as I mentioned, Discord, I do have to be off a little bit later. So we're just going to jump straight in. And yeah, Bitcoin's price is pulling back at the moment. We're currently down at around about 115,000. And what I've got up at the moment is the Bitcoin CME chart. Now, not necessarily needed for trading and charting, but it just gives us that indication of this CME gap dating all the way back to, well, not that far along, Friday the 11th, so 2 weeks ago, the CME gap formed. We've kind of identified this probably an area that we're going to look to pull back to, even though we had that monster move up to sort of 123,000. And Bitcoin's price at the moment is heading in that direction. Now, this chart currently has Bitcoin's price at 116,000. We can actually see on most other Bitcoin charts, it's actually at 115, and it did drop into 114 not so long ago. So we are looking for that gap to be closed, and it closes around about 114 dead. So we're almost at the point that has actually closed, and I think that's just something to bear in mind as we do look at some of these other charts. Going in onto the Bitcoin chart, daily time frame at the moment, I'm going to break it down lower, don't worry. And again, we've lost that 10 EMA, this range area that we talked about when I can find my pen, which I can't, here we go, where we were kind of ranging flat around here and here. We've lost the bottom of that today so far. Obviously, candle's still live, so it may retrace from that, but we've lost the 10 EMA, which has been a great level of support all the way up from this run from sort of 100,000 really. And we're kind of resting in and around the 20 EMA on the daily time frame. Got to kind of wait to see how that flows. Typically, we lose the 10, the 20 catches, and if we don't, we know we're kind of heading towards that 50 EMA. So on the daily time frame, we're about to enter into this vector zone. The 50 EMA is at the bottom of that vector zone, and we're not too sure whether or not we're going to be able to hold this candle. So there could be a suggestion that actually we are going to head down to sort of that 112,000 level, closing this vector candle here. That will also close that CME gap. And then we'll be looking to retest and see what happens on the 50 EMA. I think that's so I've talked about for the last 2 weeks. We mentioned it on Tuesday. I think that's, for me, probably where we're going. If you didn't see the call on Tuesday, kind of the beginning, I talked about levels of concern from a much higher level with Bitcoin. And actually, there's nothing really to be concerned about it pulling back, even if it went down to 109, because we've just, we've had a large move up. Naturally, things are going to come back down. But we move on to the smaller time frame. Let's try and get a picture of what's actually happening. And we can kind of see this is this range that we were talking about. For 2 weeks solid, we basically just went between 117 and 119 with a little dip above. And we were using that 50 EMA to hold us. I don't know what this blue line is here at the bottom of this. It's not me. This is part of the Trader's Reality indicator now. I don't even think Tino even knows what it is. But anyway, so it's not anything important. Don't worry about that blue line. That's just the base of the cloud. But we can kind of see the 50 EMA is holding. And then, early hours of this morning, strong red vector candle, Asia hours, taking us all the way down. And we have left the vector candle behind us. So at some stage, I would expect that to be retaken. We've come in, we've started to eat some of these vector zones here. I don't think we've had enough to satisfy that. We do have the 200 EMA down at around about 113. It'll be interesting to see how we progress today through the UK and the US time. But even then, we're going to go into the weekend where it's just basically crypto running the show. I kind of feel like that'll probably be an ideal time for the market to pull back. And then if we are in that downtrend, we'll be looking to recover it. That being said, the rest of the market, we just need to see how it opens, because the Nasdaq's still setting all-time highs, as is the S&P 500. So it'll be interesting to see how they open later on today. Take it down a little bit further on the hourly time frame. And here we go, that 50 is lost, the 200 is lost. It's messy up there because there's just so much to get through. But the speed of which this has come down, this is telling me at some stage, I think there is going to be that reversal. I think this is just a kind of a healthy pullback, if I'm perfectly honest. And there's so much area to go through. But the cynic in me would say there's plenty of green vector candles to come and take. So again, this 800 EMA, which is around about 113,500 down there, closing this vector candle, I think, that's the next area for me that I'd be looking to see if we can find a bounce. I mean, if we did fib, where do we do it from? Let's do it from right down here. Start of this move up to the all-time high, bring it across. Okay. So yeah, so we're flirting in around that 236 level. We've lost the 382, the 0.5. There we go. A bit of interest there, right on where the 800 EMA is going to be at the bottom of that vector candle. I think it's just added more weight to that. There's a potential for a long opportunity there, I suppose, but just wait to see what it does. Don't just think, oh, it's hit it, it's going to go up. Give it a little bit of time to see, but I think there could be an entry there for a long position around about 113,800, maybe waiting to see if it bounces. But this, I feel, is just going to act like a magnet and draw that one down. Might come back to Bitcoin in a bit, but there's plenty of ones we want to talk about. So we'll talk about BitTensor. Get back on the daily to start off with. Whoa. And yeah, you know, we've had that W pattern we talked about. We've had that move up. We were a little bit overextended from the 50 EMA, but again, similar to Bitcoin, we were using that 10 EMA as a nice little support all the way up. We've just gone and lost that, but the 20 EMA, when we zoom in, that's catching us quite nicely. Last couple of wicks down here, so a little bit of a. So let me just move Gandalf. I don't know why he keeps on moving. I thought I had anchored him. Little bit more hope there, but there's this tiny little vector here. The rest of the vector candles down here, they're below the cloud and the 50 EMA. So if we were to get down into those, I think we are going to be having a discussion about whether or not we're fully exhausted and there's actually a change in the trend. But a drop back down to the 50 EMA, I don't think is the worst thing in the world. Again, look how strong that move was. We went from basically 3A15 to 460 in a matter of days. There's going to be some exhaustion and selling. If I'm being honest though, just clearing this out, you know, what we really want to see after taking out some of these highs, we really want to see it push past that 365. We didn't quite get there, even with a particularly bullish candle. And we've just started to see that sort of fall away. I've not had a look at the order book today, so I don't know how stacked that order book is in terms of a sell wall. But I would I wouldn't be surprised if we see it come back down below 400. Having a look at where this 50 and 200 EMA are kind of residing at the moment. I mean, if we're going to mention it, the absolute worst case would be a fall, obviously back down to the Gandalf line, which is where the 800 EMA is going. I don't really want to entertain that one yet, because you know we're trying to have that discussion about whether or not we're heading into that alt season. Dropping it down to the 4 hour, so we're actually out at the bottom of the 50 EMA cloud. There's not too many vectors above us. We've got one immediately above us, but it's kind of an obvious target for a retest anyway before further falling. But again, there's actually not that much in terms of vectors. We've already claimed the vectors from where we currently are down to 360. So whilst that could still be a magnet and it ties in with some EMAs on the higher time frames, I don't think there's anything that necessarily drawing us down there. So for me, I'd just be looking at, say, we lose that 400 that I mentioned, at 390 tying in with the 200 EMA, and then maybe 365, 370 for the 800 EMA there. I mean, it's probably worth also doing another fib on this one. If I just clear that out, and just kind of see where this takes us. So we're actually on the 236 as we speak at the moment, and now that I've drawn this, it kind of actually does show a bit of a double top there, and we're right on this neckline. And looking at it like that, it's probably, a lot more concern about the level that we're actually at. We really need to hold this. Let's just call it 400, because I could probably move that down there and argue that's the level. So maybe we just sort of say we need to hold that 400 level and see some sort of bounce from that. We lose it, and then we're talking about maybe going down as far as, it's a $60 up that way. So $60 down would be taking out these vector candles there. Not necessarily what we want to see in terms of, again, that pullback, as I say on the higher time frame. I don't think there's anything wrong with where this is. Profit needs to be sort of taken, and people want to recycle it and get back in lows. We talk about market maker all the time. I think that's only natural. I don't think anyone necessarily needs to panic with where BitTensor is going. I do have some views on areas of concern, but I think we'll leave that. I think they're far enough away right now that we can leave that at least until next week. Let's see how the weekend plays out. Let's just take it down onto a low time frame, 1 hour, see if there's anything really new there. I don't think so. I think it kind of paints the same picture. Not many vector candles for it to have a go at. We've only got the 800 to play with, which is at 390, which ties in with the 200 on the 4 hour, obviously. And then we've got some down at 360. So when you look at it on the 1 hour, for me, let's get a horizontal line. It kind of just looks like we're at the bottom of this range. We've been down here before and we've bounced from it. So this is kind of where you want to be looking. Maybe we lose this, and those of you who are interested in taking shorts, hedging your positions, whatever, you can have a look at that. But I'd be looking at how far you really go. So getting into that, but then really seeing how we act around 390. If we lose it, fine, you can keep that short alive. But if we start to bounce from that, you know, you're quickly going to be in a position where you might have missold yourself. And also, now I look at this, there is still the bottom of that wick, that vector there, which I know the vector candle isn't there because it only does it off the bodies the way I've set it up, but there is actually down to that wick. So you could get down as far as that. Suddenly that short doesn't look too appealing now until you actually lose 390. Anyway, right, let's get on to Ethereum because that's what's been running the show. That's how we talked about it last week, on Tuesday. And again, actually, Ethereum, excuse me, that's on the 1 hour. Let's go daily first. Right, no one in their right mind could suggest, what was this I'm doing? This is obviously from Tuesday. Okay, fine, right. Let's just get rid of this fib for a second. No one in their right mind can suggest that an overextended move like this, where the EMAs were spreading out so far, doesn't require a pullback. It requires some opportunity for everything to catch up. And I feel like this is all that is happening at the moment. We have had such a monumental move across the altcoin markets, with particularly Ethereum, that it's only natural that we're going to have this back. And actually, the drop so far has only really taken us back to the 10 EMA. So nothing, major. We're still holding it actually as we speak. So I don't think there's anything to really be concerned about with Ethereum. I must have pointed out on Tuesday that this is an area that I would think that we might end up getting back towards. With sort of vector recoveries, and then where the 50 EMA will end up joining. I think that's probably still the case. We stay above that 3,000, that's fine. But this was such a strong move. Don't worry if you're in Ethereum with what's going to happen. I don't think the tide has turned on this yet. And in fact, unlike Ethereum's only dropped 2% today. Actually, most are now 2%. Earlier on, a lot of them were like 3 or 4%. But actually, I think a lot of catching up. Okay, ignore what I say there. Down onto the 4 hour. And now we can kind of see that this sort of, this move up that we've made, 10 and 20 holding us quite nicely, but then as expected, 50 EMA catching us. That's what we want. And we don't mind if we now just move this way for a little bit. Matter of fact, that's better. Let everything catch up, let everything cool off and allow ourselves to go. Bit like Bitcoin when it does its move over here and lets everything catch up and then has that move up. That's kind of what we're wanting. And if we're wanting Ethereum to continue to outpace Bitcoin, we want it to kind of stabilize for a bit, get everyone re-energized, and then look to move back up. But the 4 hour for right now doesn't look too bad at all. Holding on that 50 EMA, I'd be happy with that. Targets to the top, I still want to break 4,000. That we talked about high level on Tuesday about their sort of the local highs of this cycle. We need to break that. Then we can start talking about these vector candles over there. But 4,000 from a psychological level has just been quite hard for us to break. And even on the lower ones, maybe we come down and take some of these vectors down here. But as it stands at the moment, the 50 is holding quite well there. So well done to Ethereum. It's not often I've said that this cycle, but let's keep it going with that. XRP. So XRP is another bit of an interesting one because this one had that, let's put it on the daily, that monumental run up itself. And then we're just cooling off. And again, okay, we've lost the 10, so got a bit further than what Ethereum has, but we're actually still only holding the 20. But it was such a rise. I mean, this thing it almost doubled. It was at $2.20, got to $3.70 almost. In a matter of a week and a half. So again, very overextended move, very likely that's going to happen. If I just go back in time, I have a feeling that this here was a vector candle. So let's just do replay. Yeah, look, that's what we were talking about on Tuesday. coming back to try and tackle this vector candle, closing that one out would probably be the point. And then that's exactly what's gone and happened. We've just gone and closed that vector candle out here. We're finding some sort of stability right now. I do think XRP, although it has run quite strong, I think it's going to be very reliant on how the rest of the altcoin market does. The altcoin market turns out and goes north, this is obviously going to climb, and it'll probably climb at a faster rate just because of the hype that's behind it with the all-time high being hit. Could it get down as far here? Absolutely, of course it could. 50 EMAs there. We are still overextended. I want to see it kind of balance around here if it isn't going to do that. Obviously, that's what you really want to see. But we can't ignore these. We got to be concerned again if we retrace it all, and that goes with anything really. If we suddenly retrace everything that we've made over the last 2 weeks, we've got to think, is that the end of this alt season? Of people taking profits from alts and where they're looking to recycle that? Is stablecoins going up? Is Bitcoin going up? Bitcoin dominance going up? But until we break that, then it's fine. Down on the lower time frames, and this was the one that I was trading on the 15-minute, remember? But you can kind of actually see we've lost everything with speed and vectors here, potentially maybe forming a little bit of a double bottom if we can stick this level, which would be nice to see, just to give us some sort of movement back up. But what we've got to then break through, we need to break through with speed. I think we'd need like green or blue vector candle here to get through the there's 3 EMAs, one quite close, but the 2 overlapping each other on the 10 and the 50, so the 20 and the 50, and then to get through these vectors here. But again, on the smaller time frame, vector candles just get recovered, and I accept that you'll be like, well, Harry, these could easily get recovered. They could, but this one's closer to price action at the moment. That's one I'd be looking at. If we go down onto the nosebleed, the 15-minute, we'll just have a look at what we're going to kind of see here. So again, we've had that move up. Now this unfortunately had that move up, then it ranged for a nice amount of time, but then ultimately you can't get an all-time high and then market gets stagnant without people deciding they're going to take profit. We've got smart people investing in product, in the hype around XRP, shall we say, and they're just going to look to take profits where they can. But even on a 15-minute, actually now we look at this, we've had some big sells, some big drop-offs, bought back up, but they're kind of a bit dead cat bounce. What I do like is we made that bottom here with a nice low test. We've come back up. We've had green vector candles breaking through the 50 EMA. We've kind of hit the 800 and the 200 together. That's just such a powerful level. We bounced back up. 50 EMA's caught us, and we're starting to lose it again, I accept. But this is where we could be forming that double bottom. So we really want to see a good move from here. And now that these are spreading out a little bit, can we actually clear 320, stay above that, and then get above 326? 15-minute time frame, so it's a little bit easier to break those than some of the other ones. A couple of people asked for some other ones, so I'm just going to have a look at those now. Pippin, I'd never heard of it before, so bear with me on this one. I mean, it's newish. It's about a year old, isn't it? Just under, or certainly the chart I'm using it from is a year old. What I don't like, I mean, it's standing out straight away on the daily, is, regardless of what's happened this last year, we've had a massive run up. Don't know if that was through some sort of news announcement or whatever, but look at those high tests, really sort of pushing that back down, rejecting from the 200 EMA, and then the 50, we lose that straight away, and down we go. We don't have an 800, it's not old enough for that on the daily, and now we're just below everything. Yeah, we've had a bit of a pullback today. It's actually 5% up if you manage to catch that bottom, but ultimately on a higher time frame, not looking great. What I would say though is that we are on a baseline, so if this is what you're looking at, we've got that level there. Maybe you want to take it down, but one of those two, ultimately we're in and around. I wonder what the fib would do top to bottom. We could do 2, I suppose. We did that to that. I mean, there you go. From the top of the drop, I've not drawn it that accurately to the bottom. Look what's happened. We've shot straight up and just been rejected from the first of the golden 3, and we come back down. I'm wondering if we do it another way. Maybe do up to here and then across. Tidy that one up a little bit. See if I can get it to actually look a bit accurate. Maybe not. I was thinking maybe there, but that's going to be low. It's almost got to the 0.5. Either way, I maybe it's an opportunity to buy from this. I don't know the project, don't know the token, so I can't really comment on it too much. Virtue, just going to go down to this one. Again, Virtue, you know what? I don't think that's necessarily too bad right now. We're still in this predominant range here that we've been in for the last couple of months. For those of you that managed to, catch the lows, you're still looking at some nice, 3-4x from where we are. The 200 EMA is holding us. It looks like we're just about to bounce off that one, or certainly react with that at the moment. So maybe that's an ideal time to actually get a position in, whether that's a long trade or actually for some spot buys. Certainly an area to look at. Okay, we might wick a little bit down just to take this out, but I don't think it's going to be the end of the world. Either way, let's just close that. PAL, someone else to have a look at. Again, PAL, I mean, what can I say for this one? I haven't followed it in a while. I mean, we are in a downtrend on the daily. We have sort of got some bottoming pattern here, which is quite nice to see. And then we're just trying to make this upside, aren't we? Whether or not you want to see a sort of a neckline in and around here, we've got the 200 EMA, we've got a breakthrough to get to that. But obviously we've got to start that journey at some stage. We are seeing those climbs through, and it looks like it's done all right over the last couple of days. It's only really climbed this week. So when everything else was moving the week before, it was just consolidated and then it shot up. But yeah, 200 EMA seems to have knocked it back down a little bit. I think it has previously knocked it back down. So we've just got to be a bit cautious that if it does, history's kind of suggests that we're going to take that vector candle down there. Maybe even some of these lower ones. From a longer term kind of play, I think you gotta really only get excited if we can get above 18 cents, get above that neckline, and then we can see about making some larger move up there. Sui, someone's asked for as well. So climbing out nicely. This one, everything's looking kind of good. Move up. Nothing wrong with how this is pulling back though. We've seen it pull back like that before. We did lose the 20 today. We're ever so slightly under it, but who knows how today's going to end. If we can close above that, it's just a natural retest of the 20 EMA, and it just looks like perfect steps, really, doesn't it? W formation, rise 1, potentially rise 2. I mean, I don't like the technicality of the rises in terms of how quick they've happened and where they come back. I bet on lower time frames they're going to look a lot better. Hey there, Rob. Sorry I had to start it early if you've just joined, but you can catch it from the beginning. Down on the 4 hour with this, let's see if we can see a better picture, I suppose. So where's that W? So this was the W that we were talking about. And then suddenly we've got this to have a look at. And again, we have this breakthrough, so we get through with a vector candle. Would I call that one a rise 1? I mean, you could argue that it is, but I kind of think too short consolidation period. So rise 1 for me, that's your consolidation period back to the 50 EMA. Rise 2, consolidation. We've lost it, but don't worry, as long as we stay above 27, the rise counts are still working, and we've got the 200 EMA on the 4 hour holding us as support there. So, nothing. And you go on smaller time frames, you get down the 15-minute, and I bet you, I just try and draw it now, and then we'll see. There's a nice little W forming there. I wonder if we've got a 3 count fall down on the 15-minute. Yeah, we kind of do, really. So, we're just seeing patterns within patterns. I don't know where you're going to find this M in here. There's going to be an M somewhere. And drop 1, drop 2, drop 3, W, off we go. So, I don't think that's too bad from that point of view. CRV, someone asked me to look at. This one is performing well. I'm not sure what is driving the market up at the moment, but it has been a good place to be. We've pretty much doubled ourselves this month. Yep, we've left a little bit of noise behind ourselves. There's a lot of green vector candles there, So I don't know if there's some fundamentals that are driving this here. We haven't cleared the local all-time high, but we're nicely today working off it. Hit retested the 10 EMA, and up we go. I would say at some stage that not necessarily that the balloon's going to pop, but I think we're going to have to come and find that 20, wherever that 20 ends up being. It's pretty steep at the moment, these, so it might not be as big a drop as you might think. But right now, retest off the 10 EMA with the strength it's been showing, I think that's perfect. We're out of W formation and neckline. We haven't quite taken 104 and closed above it, but that's the battleground there. And then we lose that, we're starting to talk about retesting annual highs, where we got after the Trump pump back in November, December. And then Litecoin, I think, was the last one people want to have a look at. And again, Litecoin looking good, kind of a bit like Ethereum's chart on the daily time frame. We've had that move down, strong move up, green and blue vector candles that we've kind of seen here. But then just consolidate down. I mean, a strong move like that, we're getting away. We've got to expect it, and it's come back down. It's catching it here. I think, until we see otherwise, this is still in play. We've broken the neckline, and that could be extended that way as well. We've come back down. We've retested this. That is, for me, is the more logical move to have. Of course, it can lose it, and then we see. But we've retested 107 today. We retested it yesterday as well, which happened to time with a 10 EMA. Unless we close below 107, this just feels like it's a bit of a retest from an overextended move before we make that next move up. So again, nice to see. Let's just put that on here. I'll have to hit save, otherwise I'll lose all of that. Let's go onto a clean chart. So we've got Bitcoin dominance. So this is on the weekly time frame at the moment. I didn't want it to be on the weekly. Sorry, let me just duplicate this. This is the last couple of charts, I promise. Well, that's loading up. Open anyway. If I just go back onto Bitcoin dominance now, here we go. So it's on the daily. And what did we have? We had that drop down, which tied in with previous levels. We've come back up, and then interestingly, we've hit the underside of the 200 EMA, and then we've started to fall again, suggesting that Bitcoin is still slowing down compared to altcoins. I know a couple of days ago we had a nice little pullback, but actually at the moment altcoins still outperforming where Bitcoin is going, so there's still potential to be holding on to that. I do want to see it lose 60 and some of these other levels. That's the main one for us to have a proper season, but I do want to see it lose some of the levels, and this line here, if we regain that, then we're back on track to where we're going. If I just put it on the weekly, you can kind of see that fall down to the 50 EMA. That is a concern, because as we said on Tuesday, we touch that 50 EMA all the time. We've hit it, and then we've seen a positive move up from it, which is why we need a couple of candles to just see how that one is ultimately going to play out. Whilst I'm not going to necessarily go through them, just in terms of, just look, NASDAQ all-time high, S&P all-time high yesterday as well. So these things are still performing very strongly. Coinbase, it did hit its all-time high 2 days ago, and then yesterday it's pulled back ever so slightly. Circle's just cooling off. Sorry, these on the weekly time frame, no problem. Let's go back on some of these. So Coinbase, it wasn't, and it was end of last week. Hey there, Jordan. Sorry I'm a little early, but you'll catch up, I'm sure. Circle's pulling back. I've not done anything with that one yet. I want to see it fall further, and I'm happy to wait. MicroStrategy, the more I read about this new scheme they're putting through, I don't really like what they're doing, but obviously people do in terms of Bitcoin exposure. Anyway, it is what it is. Nvidia about to retest its all-time high. It's a shame. Why it should be projecting the openings on this, and it's not. I don't know why, because we do have pre-market data, but it's not showing it where it is. But anyway, looking good. TauX, I know some people invested in that. Obviously, I think everyone can see the day people invested in it last week. Just consolidating here. But yeah, we want to see a move from that. And then Tesla, it missed its earnings reports. It dropped down quite significantly from that. That gap will likely get filled at some stage. They always do. There's concern about Elon being a bit more concerned about his new party and all that. So, but that is one that I hold, and I'll just continue to hold for now. I think that's probably it. It's been 30 minutes. Sorry it was early. Sorry it was short. I will be around on Discord. I don't have any live trains open at the moment, just because I'm just too busy having a social life. I like to just trade whilst I'm in front of my PC. So there'll be nothing for this weekend, but I will be looking Monday to get back in it again. The XRP one worked well for me. I just wish I had the balls to short it, because it was a hell of a short afterwards. Anyway, enjoy the rest of your weekend. I'll speak to you all in Discord, I'm sure. And if I don't, I'll see you all on Tuesday. Thanks again, and cheers now.